I never thought I'd find myself in a story like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've got a tale that's as raw and brutal as it gets. I was married to Lisa for 3 years. Quiet, steady, predictable, that was us. We had our routines, our quiet nights, our weekend trips. Nothing special, but enough to keep me believing I had something real. Until that day during my grandfather's funeral. That day, everything changed. I was standing by the grave with my family, feeling that strange mix of grief and obligation. The air was heavy, thick with dirt and the scent of wilted flowers. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting some condolence message or a text from Lisa. Instead, I saw a photo, an intimate one of her with my best friend Joe. They were kissing. Not just a quick peck, but full on. And they looked relaxed, comfortable, like this was just another afternoon to them. My stomach dropped so fast it was like a punch to the gut. I froze, staring at the screen. My breath hitched. My mind refused to accept what I was seeing. Couldn't be true. I looked around, feeling eyes on me, but I couldn't move. My hands started to shake. I clenched them into fists so tight my nails bit into my palms. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I pushed the phone back into my pocket and turned away. My legs felt like they'd buckle, but I forced myself to walk. I needed to get out of there before I lost it completely. Every step felt heavy, like I was dragging the weight of a betrayal I couldn't understand. The world around me blurred, people talking, the casket being lowered, yet all I could focus on was that picture. Those two betrayers smiling, intertwined in their lie. When I finally got to the car, I sat there, trembling. My palms were slick with sweat. I stared at the phone again. Every lie I ever believed about Lisa, every fake smile, every "I love you," all of it was a lie. I'd been blind. Or maybe I just didn't want to see. Now I understood why certain things had felt off lately. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden disappearances. I just never wanted to admit how deep it went. That night, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling. My mind kept circling around her face, Joe's face, the betrayal. It felt like someone had ripped out my insides. Lisa had always been charming, sweet, the kind of woman people trusted, but that trust, it shattered faster than glass hitting concrete. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let this go. I had to plan. I had to figure out what revenge would look like. But first I needed proof, something concrete, undeniable. I needed her to know I knew. I needed to make her face the truth, just as I was starting to accept it myself. That's when I remembered her phone. She was careless with it sometimes, leaving it lying around. Maybe I could find something there, some explanation, or at least enough evidence to confront her properly. That's how this all started. A quiet, brutal plan to uncover the truth, and if I had to, take back some control. I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted her to pay for what she did, in a way she'd never see coming. And I'd make damn sure she understood exactly how badly she'd hurt me. I reached for her phone the next morning, heart pounding like I'd been running a race I didn't want to finish. As I unlocked it, I felt the sweat on my palms, the sting of adrenaline. The screen flickered to life. And there, hidden in her messages, was more than I ever could have imagined. Now I knew what I was dealing with. Now I knew what I had to do. Would you like me to continue? I spent the next few hours like a man possessed, scrolling through her messages, searching for anything that confirmed what I'd already suspected. Her phone was a goldmine of lies, hidden behind vague texts and secretive emojis. But it was one message that hit me like a punch to the stomach. A chat with Joe, scheduled for that weekend, right after the funeral. They'd planned it like it was nothing more than a casual meetup. That's when I saw the picture again, this time with a timestamp. I couldn't ignore the fact that they'd been planning this betrayal for weeks, maybe longer. I felt my heart pounding in my chest so hard I thought it might burst. My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. I wanted to scream, but I kept it inside, boiling with rage. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Were there more times I was blind to? How many lies had I told myself to keep believing in us? I knew I had to confront her, but not yet. Not until I had something concrete. I needed her to admit everything, face the evidence. The thought of her lying again, denying it, made my stomach turn. I was furious, but I also needed a plan, something precise, calculated. I couldn't afford to make mistakes. I spent the rest of that day gathering evidence, screenshots of their secret messages, timestamps, even a copy of the photo saved in a hidden folder. I knew I needed to keep my cool. I couldn't let her see how much I'd uncovered, but the temptation to confront her immediately was overwhelming. Still, I knew I had to wait, keep her thinking I was clueless. That was part of the game. That evening I cooked dinner, pretending everything was normal. Lisa came home, her face tired but smiling. I forced a smile too, but inside I was boiling. She sat across from me, trying act casual, maybe thinking I hadn't found out. I looked at her, knowing that her perfect facade was about to crack. "Hey honey, how was your day?" I asked, voice steady but with a hint of icy calm. She shrugged. "Same old, work was busy, you?" I nodded. "Busy too, just thinking about a lot, family stuff, you know." Her eyes flickered with something, nervousness maybe. I saw her swallow hard. I decided to push, slow and steady. "You know, Lisa, I found some messages on your phone today. Some that don't sit right with me." Her face paled slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Come on," I said. "I saw the timestamps, the plans with Joe, the pictures. It's pretty clear what's been going on." Her hands trembled a little, but she tried to brush it off. "It's nothing, Mark, you're overthinking." I leaned in, voice low. "No, I'm not. I have proof, and I want to hear the truth, now." She looked down, defeated, and then, almost inaudibly, she muttered, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." That's when I felt that familiar surge. Rage, not just anger, but a deep, burning betrayal. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails cut into my palms. I wanted to shake her, scream at her, but I kept my voice even. "You've been lying to me this whole time. How long has this been going on? How many nights did you spend with him, pretending to be normal?" She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "It just happened. I didn't want to hurt you. I was stupid, I guess. It wasn't supposed to be serious." I felt my stomach twist. Everything I believed in shattered. I'd trusted her with everything, my life, my heart, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back. I saw no point in pretending anymore. I had to do something, but I wasn't going to do it in the heat of this moment. No, I needed to plan. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, feeling the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. I knew I had to get revenge, but not just to hurt her. I needed her to see what she'd lost. I needed her to understand the depth of her mistake. The plan was forming, simple but effective. I'd make her realize that I wasn't just some fool to be played. She'd regret every lie, every betrayal. And once I was done, she'd have no choice but to face the consequences. I looked at her sleeping on the couch, tears streaking her face, and I knew this was only the beginning. The moment of reckoning was coming, and I'd be ready for it. "Would you like me to continue?" The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. My mind was sharp and my resolve firm. I knew what had to be done, and I wasn't going to hold back anymore. I couldn't live with the lies, and I couldn't let her think she had any control over this situation. The first step was to gather everything I needed: more proof, a plan that would shake her to her core, and a way to make her realize the stakes had changed. I spent the morning meticulously planning my next move. I wanted her to feel the same gut-wrenching betrayal that had crushed me. I decided I'd leave her a note, something straightforward with a trace of the coldness I was starting to feel. Not angry exactly, more like a calculated warning. I sat down at the kitchen table, pulling out a pen and paper, my hand trembling slightly, not from fear but from determination. I wrote, "You betrayed me in the worst way. I've seen everything now, and there's no going back. You have one chance to tell me the truth, because I'm about to show you just how much I know. If you think you're getting away with this, you're wrong. We're done." It felt good to write it out, to see the words on paper. It was a declaration of war, and I was ready to fight. I left the note on the kitchen counter where she'd see it when she woke up. After that, I retreated to the bedroom to prepare my next move. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already installed a hidden camera system in the apartment, the kind that records in plain sight so she'd never suspect. I wanted her to walk right into her own trap, to see herself for what she really was. I knew her habits, her secrets, and I'd use them against her. My goal wasn't just revenge, it was making her feel exposed, vulnerable, and ashamed. The day dragged on. I kept busy, pretending everything was normal, but inside I was a storm of anticipation. Every time I heard her footsteps, my stomach clenched. I kept my phone close, waiting for her to make her move. I knew she'd come home for her things or maybe confront me. Either way, I was ready. Finally, she arrived around late afternoon. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her coat, avoiding my eyes. I watched her from the corner of the room, cool and steady. "Lisa," I said softly, "I'm not going to pretend anymore. I have proof. I've seen enough. No more lies." She looked at me, tears pooling again. "Mark, please, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You thought you could do this without consequences, that I'd never find out. Well, guess what? I did." She took a shaky step forward. "I never wanted to hurt you." Funny, I cut her off again. "Because I feel like I've been punched in the gut. But I'm not just ending this with words. You're going to see exactly how much. You've screwed up." I reached out, grabbing my phone from my pocket. I pressed a button and the small, hidden camera in the corner of the room flickered on, recording her every move. Her eyes widened, realization dawning. "You set me up," she whispered, voice trembling. "Set you up," I repeated. "No, I just gave you enough rope to hang yourself, and now we're going to see how far you've gone." She backed away, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Mark, I made a mistake. I didn't mean for it to get this far." "I don't believe in mistakes like this," I said coldly. "This is betrayal, and I'm done being your fool." I paused, feeling the weight of what was coming next. "You can pack your things and leave, or stay and face the truth." She hesitated, then nodded slowly, tears still falling. "I'll go." As she gathered her belongings in silence, I knew this was just the beginning. The proof was rolling in and her world was crumbling. I felt nothing but a grim satisfaction. I'd played this game long enough. In the end, I'd let her betray me. Not just to hurt her, but to make her see what she'd lost: herself, her integrity, whatever shred of dignity she had left. I handed her the keys to her apartment, watching her carefully as she took them, her hands trembling. "Goodbye, Lisa," I said. "Don't bother contacting me. You've made your choice." She left without a word. I closed the door behind her and sat down on the couch, feeling an odd mix of emptiness and relief. I knew I'd made the right move. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It's about reclaiming your own dignity when everything's been stripped away. And that's exactly what I'd done. Would you like me to continue? The silence in the apartment was deafening after she left. I sat there for a long time, staring at the door, feeling the weight of what just transpired. The adrenaline had ebbed, leaving behind a strange calm, like I'd finally taken control of a situation that had spiraled out of my hands. But beneath that calm, there was a deep anger simmering, still unresolved. I'd done what I set out to do, but I knew revenge was a process, not an endpoint. Now I had to face the aftermath. My mind kept circling over what I'd just done, recorded her, confronted her, handed her over like a pawn. I wasn't proud of the destruction, but I wasn't sorry either. I'd been too blind, too trusting for too long. This was my way of reclaiming what was mine, my dignity, my peace. I rewatched the footage on my phone, her face, trembling, eyes filled with regret and fear. The moment she realized she'd been caught, the way her hands clenched and unclenched, her breath catching, every detail was burned into my mind. That was her real face. No more pretending, just raw, honest shame. I felt a strange, sick satisfaction knowing she'd see herself for what she truly was. Later that evening, I sat on the balcony, cigarette in hand, watching the city lights flicker. The cool air hit my skin. It was the first time I truly felt alive again after that chaos. I knew I'd be okay. I'd be better without her, even if it hurt now. I had to remind myself that I deserved better, that I wouldn't be a fool again. The phone buzzed. I hesitated, then checked it. A message from her. Simple, cold. "I'm sorry, I never wanted to hurt you." I chuckled bitterly. That was her apology, pathetic. I deleted it without responding. She'd never get the satisfaction of an explanation from me. Not anymore. But I knew this wasn't just about her. It was about me, reclaiming my strength. I'd shut that door, but I had to make sure she knew I wasn't coming back. I had to send her one last message, something definitive, something that left no room for doubt. I grabbed my phone again, typed quickly. "This is over. Don't contact me again. You lost the right to be part of my life." I pressed send and watched the message disappear into the ether. That was final. There was no closing chapter without closure, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way back in. The days that followed were chaotic, but I kept my focus. I cleaned out my apartment, got rid of anything that reminded me of her, the clothes, the photos, the little trinkets. I wanted to erase the past, not forget it, but to move forward with clarity. It was time to rebuild not just my space, but my trust in myself. People started reaching out, mutual friends, family, even some of her acquaintances. They'd heard what happened. Some sympathized, some judged. It didn't matter. I had already made my decision. I knew I needed distance, time to heal. But I also knew I'd be better off without her, that this was an end I'd forced to happen. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her to come crawling back. She'd lost that right. Looking back now, I realize how much I'd let her manipulate my trust. But this experience, as bitter as it was, taught me a brutal truth. Sometimes you have to rip out the roots of betrayal to grow again. Revenge isn't about hurting someone just for the sake of it. It's about reclaiming your self-respect and making sure they understand they lost something priceless: your trust, your love, your faith in them. I've learned to value myself more, to listen to my instincts when something feels wrong. Women like Lisa, they think they can get away with anything. But the truth always comes out. And when it does, you have a choice, either to let it break you or to use it as a stepping stone. So here's my advice to anyone in a similar situation: trust your gut, gather evidence. Don't act impulsively, but don't wait too long either. Confront the betrayal head on, and then walk away. Because if someone doesn't respect you enough to be honest, they don't deserve a place in your life. Revenge, when necessary, isn't about getting even. It's about restoring your peace. And trust me, nothing feels better than finally taking back control, knowing you won't be a fool again. Would you like me to continue? A few weeks had passed since she left, and I thought I'd gotten a handle on things. The apartment was empty except for my belongings, the silence almost comforting. I'd thrown out what I could, blocked her number, and stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. Still, I knew the emotional fallout wasn't over. Betrayal like that leaves scars, deep ones that don't just fade overnight. One night, I was sitting on my couch, trying to piece together how I'd let it get this far. My mind kept circling back to the moments I missed, the late nights she lied about, the small signs I brushed aside. Every detail now felt like a neon sign pointing to her treachery. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had taken back my power, made her feel the weight of her actions. That was the victory I needed. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I hesitated, then looked at the screen. A message from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously, expecting spam, but it was something entirely different. A picture appeared, her with Joe, smiling like they'd won something. But below the picture was a new message. "You think you've won? Think again. We're not done yet." My stomach clenched. That wasn't just some random message. That was a warning, a threat. Someone was watching, and it wasn't over. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. For a moment, I questioned whether I'd really cut ties completely or if there was more to her story. I stared at the message, my mind racing. Who could it be? Was it Joe or someone else? Either way, it was clear I was being watched. The revenge had only just begun. That's when I decided I needed to be more careful. I'd played my cards, but apparently someone was still holding theirs close. The next day, I took steps to cover my tracks. Changed all my passwords, enabled two-factor authentication everywhere I could, and even installed some security apps. I couldn't risk her or anyone else catching me off guard again. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting myself from whatever else was coming. I also started talking to a friend, a guy I trust who had some experience with this sort of thing. "You need to be cautious," he warned. "People can get obsessive, especially after betrayal. Keep your eyes open and don't let her manipulate you again." That day, I realized that my revenge wasn't just about exposing her or cutting her loose. It was about regaining control of my life, my safety. I knew I'd be okay, so long as I stayed vigilant. Still, the threat lingered like a dark cloud hanging over my head. I had opened a door, and now I had to make sure I was ready for whatever storm was coming through. I kept busy, focusing on work and my hobbies, anything to distract myself from the chaos. But in the back of my mind, I knew I couldn't fully relax until I'd shut this chapter for good. I had to remind myself I'd already won a small victory. The biggest one was walking away, refusing to let her control me anymore. That night I made a quiet vow. I'd keep my guard up, learn from this, and never let myself be blindsided again. Betrayal hurts, but it also teaches you what you're truly capable of, standing tall, fighting back, and never losing sight of who you are. And I was done being the victim. I'd forge a new path, one where I was in control. Because revenge isn't just about hurting someone else. It's about healing yourself enough to move forward. And I was ready to do just that. Would you like me to continue? The days turned into weeks, and I kept my distance from her, but the paranoia never really left. Every time my phone buzzed, I tensed up. Every shadow in my apartment suddenly felt like it hid some new threat. I knew I stirred the hornet's nest, and I had to be prepared for whatever was coming next. But amidst all that chaos, I finally felt like I was reclaiming myself, stronger, sharper, more aware. One evening, I decided I needed to take a definitive step, not just to protect myself, but to close this chapter for good. I grabbed the legal papers I'd been researching and I prepared to file for a restraining order. It was the final nail in the coffin, a clear message: I was done. No more games, no more threats. She was out of my life and I was going to make sure she stayed there. I sat at my desk, hands trembling slightly as I filled out the forms. My mind was calm now, focused. I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure I could move on without fear or interference. I printed everything, double-checked the details, and then, with a deep breath, I went to the courthouse. The process was straightforward, but every step felt like a victory. I handed over the paperwork, watched the clerk process it, and got a court date set. In that moment, I felt a weight lift from my chest. I'd taken control. I'd done everything I could to protect myself, my space, my peace, my future. When I returned home, I packed her belongings into a box and left it on the porch with a simple note: "Goodbye. Never contact me again." It felt surreal, closing that door forever, but I knew I had to for my own sanity. I was finally free from her grip. The final act was handing over the keys to the apartment to the landlord, legally ending her access to my life. I watched her sign the papers, her face tired, defeated. That day, I felt a strange mix of relief and victory. Not because I'd hurt her, but because I'd taken back my power. I'd refused to be a victim, and I'd shown her that betrayal comes with consequences. Now I'm living again, piece by piece. I keep reminding myself that trust is fragile and should never be taken for granted. But most importantly, I understand that sometimes you have to fight your way back from the edge. It's not about revenge for revenge's sake. It's about reclaiming your dignity when someone tries to strip it away. Looking back, I realize how much I let myself be blinded by love. But that blindness turned into clarity. I learned that even in the darkest moments, you have a choice: to let it destroy you or to rise from the ashes. I chose the latter. So here's my final piece of advice: never ignore the signs, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to stand up for yourself. When someone hurts you that deeply, the only way forward is to take control and walk away. Because if you don't, you're just letting them win. And I refuse to be a loser in my own life. This story isn't about revenge, it's about survival. And in the end, that's what truly matters.